to the day when Yahweh would claim the whole earth and fill it with his glory. And then ninthly, resurrection. Within this new world, there will be newly embodied human beings. Resurrection is what happens when you triangulate God's putting to right of all things with God the Creator. If you believe in creation and believe in the biblical sense in judgment, you will end up with resurrection. Very interesting. In both Judaism and the early fathers, that's very, very clear. Resurrection is what you get when you have a strong theology of creation, a strong theology of Yahweh putting all things to rights. Lose one or other of them, and you can wander off into all sorts of other speculations about what happens to human beings, if anything, after they die here. Get these right, and you have resurrection, a time of resting, of being at peace with the Lord. The souls of the righteous are in the hand of God, says Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3. And then they'll be back, newly embodied. And, of course, the rabbis speculate as to what that'll be like. And, of course, the Sadducees sneer at them and tell silly stories about the woman who has 7 husbands and which one is she going to have and all the rest of it. Very easy, like Tertullian, when in the end of the 2nd century, faced with the problem of how you expound resurrection. Somebody asked Tertullian, supposing a cannibal eats a Christian and then supposing the cannibal gets converted. At the resurrection, who's going to get which bits of the body? Great question. Tertullian just said, basically, don't waste my time. Origen had a better answer than that. He said, actually, our bodies are like, they're in a state of flux. He knew that already. The physical person you are currently is not identical with the physical person you were 10 years ago. You've changed your complete molecular kit. And as C.S. Lewis said, making the same point, we are to that extent like the curve in a waterfall. Continuity of form, discontinuity of matter. So it's not a big deal for God to give form to matter, a form which will be truly us. Anyway, so just hold those 9 in your head if you can, and think of the way in which what we're looking at there is a new Genesis and a new Exodus. It's a new creation and a new liberation. Creation and redemption, modeled on Genesis, modeled on Exodus, expressed, sung, prophesied, Psalms, Isaiah, Malachi, all through. And just think for a moment, supposing you're a first century Jew going about the rest of the world, supposing you're doing trade in Turkey or Greece or Rome or wherever, North Africa, what sort of hope have other people got? Not a fat lot, actually. The other gods don't give you a huge amount of hope. The best you can do is to hope that the malevolent gods will somehow be propitiated and stay out of your hair, and that if there are any kind ones out there, they might actually let your business thrive or your crops grow or your family not suffer too much or whatever it is. And if you're a Stoic, and you probably were an aristocrat to be a Stoic, you believed that eventually this whole world would dissolve into fire and then it would all come back and exactly the same things would happen all over again. Pretty depressing philosophy, actually. Except that the great hope, which was on offer at the time, in the 1st century, was the imperial hope that now that we had the Son of God, the Lord of the world's Saviour, Augustus Caesar, then suddenly the world had entered a new golden age of peace and prosperity. As long as you sat down, shut up, paid your taxes and did what you were told. And the taxes all tended, as they do under empires, to flow one way. And if you didn't like that hope, there was an easy alternative. We will kill you, probably by crucifixion. Go figure. Imagine the Jewish hope by contrast with the pagan hope of the time. Okay, the philosophers, some of them, following Plato, thought that maybe good people, i.e. philosophers, would end up in a blissful place of disembodied delight, talking philosophy to one another, of course. That's what you do. Not much hope. You know, those tombstones in the ancient world. Non fui, non sum, non curo. I was not, I am not, I don't care. That's a kind of a robust, spitting in the face of destiny sort of philosophy. But imagine the Jewish hope by contrast with that. Now, the whole New Testament is written to say that every bit of that Jewish hope has been fulfilled in Jesus the Messiah and is to be fulfilled in the power of the Spirit. This is the basis of our confidence in God's future. I want to work back through that list, upside down. All this has come to pass. All the promises of God, says Paul, find their yes in him. Luke 24, didn't you understand this is what had to happen? Resurrection has now split into two. 1 Corinthians 15, that which we expected at the end has happened in the middle of history in the case of one person. Completely unimaginable, unprecedented, unheard of. Because resurrection isn't just somebody coming back to life like the widow's son that Elijah heals, or indeed the widow's son that Jesus heals, or that Lazarus. Lazarus comes back into this life and has to die again, and bless him, by the end of John 11, they're already planning to kill him again. But Jesus has gone through death and out the other side into a new world, a new physical world, a trans-physical world, a more than physical world, over which death has no authority. Resurrection has now split into two. Romans 6, we are already dying and rising with Christ in our baptism. Colossians 3, similarly. But one day we will be raised with Christ, Romans 8. We live between Romans 6 and Romans 8. We are resurrection people with all the tension of our true identity not yet being realized. That was number 9. Going back to number 8, as we said yesterday, the glory, which was the glory of Yahweh, has appeared in the house in the form of Jesus driving out the traders. That's what Luke 19 is all about. You did not know the time of your visitation. That's your divine. This was the time when God was coming back and you didn't recognize it. But now, all that new temple theology in Paul, it's not just a miscellaneous metaphor. Imagine Paul, a devout Jew, saying to that muddled rabble in Corinth, you are the temple of the living God, and then expounding it so that it's not left to chance. It's clear he means it. You are now the place where the living God truly dwells. And when in Colossians 1:27 he talks about Christ in you, the hope of glory, we have individualized that, and we've futurized that as simply Christ is in me, therefore one day I will go to glory, whatever that means. We've used that as another synonym for heaven. For a start, it's Christos en human, plural, Christ in you, plural. But what is the hope of glory? The hope of glory is that one day Yahweh's glory will fill the whole creation. And as Paul looks out across his map of the Mediterranean world, he sees 12 people in Colossae and 15 in Laodicea, 25 in Ephesus, and maybe 50 in Corinth, and maybe 70 in Rome. The hope of glory. Here is the glory already, flickering, a burning and shining light, a signpost to the day when the whole of Turkey and Greece and Italy and everywhere will be filled with the glory of God. 7th, Torah. What the law could not do in that it was weak through the flesh, God has done, sending his Son and his Spirit. Romans 8, 3 and 4, the quintessence of Paul's theology of Torah and redemption. The new covenant in which everything that Torah longed to do but couldn't do because Israel too was in Adam, God has now done. Setting an agenda for holiness for the people of God, which cannot be reduced to 19 little rules that you might or might not keep and a few you might bend or break here, and setting instead the sense of a human life, corporate and individual, lived in the presence and power and glory of God. New covenant. This is my body, this is my blood of the new covenant. Jesus said it on the night he was betrayed. A new covenant which will reach its fulfillment.